very short. Well, she started much morning. Hey, so understand, yeah. Start with the traditional acknowledgement that we acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we're meeting today. Moving to adoption of the agenda. Touch wood, not as long an agenda as some of them, but nothing new from staff. Moved to adopt and seconded. Without any additions, changes, all in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much. Received minutes were taken to the board last month. I think they're in good shape as they should be, unless anybody's noticed anything since. See none, they're just received. So we don't have any delegations from land use applications and the like this month, which is kind of unusual. So we will move past item 6 to item 7.1. So this is a report from Dana for information. Kootenay Lake Forest Landscape Plan and the RBCK participation. And it doesn't quite include all of our electoral areas because the timber supply area for Kootenay Lake isn't quite as broad as the entirety of the regional district. However, Dana, maybe there's quite a lot here. If you want to give us a little time, if you want to give us as complete an overview as you can, because this is quite it's new language and new direction from the old forest stewardship plan. So the floor is yours to enlighten us.
Thank you, Chair. So the province is initiating a forest landscape plan for the Kootenay Lake timber supply area. And you're correct, Chair, this is a different method than the forest stewardship plans of the past. As I understand it, I should say staff have only attended one meeting, so our understanding is light as well. That is seems to be more of a landscape higher cumulative impact level than the previous plans, but it's still focused on forestry as an industry versus the landscape level plans they're talking about that are across different industries. So RDCK has been asked to take part in engagement for the plan, and this report provides information on how RDCK will provide feedback. We've selected being part of their local government advisory group, and so the planning manager, planner 2, and the sustainability planner will be part of that group. And then we've also selected an option for what they are calling engagement in a box, which will allow the province to provide us some engagement materials that we can bring back for internal engagement with RAC members, as well as internal staff that may be interested. And so, as a next step, staff will share engagement materials with the RAC and board as they're made available. We haven't had our first meeting as an advisory group yet, but I understand they're a quarterly commitment. So more to come, but I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I have a few, but I'm sure quite a few of us have. So start with Popoff and Watson. Please go ahead, Director Popoff.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I see Area H is not included because possibly it's not in the Kootenay Lake, it's in the Arrowhead.
That's right. Your the Appendix A shows the map in your, it just squeaks past Area H, so you're not within this supply area.
That's right, thank you.
Yeah.
I would note though that it's not clear how many years it'll take to roll these out across all the timber supply areas, but I think ask as many questions as you want because you could be next. So we'll get a good understanding for this now.
I will say this plan they're expected to take until 2028 is when they're engaging, when they would finish this plan. And just from doing some research on their website, it looks like they've been through a couple of pilot plans for other timber supply areas, and they don't seem to have a schedule for other timber supply areas that maybe would be incorporated in, but maybe after the 2028 when this is done, I'm not sure.
Yeah, just an observation, when they did the timber supply area collaborative, they chose 3 eventually to do it once. So I could see, not knowing which, they could get so far down the road with one and then say, well, now we're going to expand this template. So I think it's relevant to everybody. Go to Chair Watson and then Director Weatherhead. Please go ahead.
You got Cunningham over there too.
Great, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. And we knew this was on the horizon, and I know it's not necessarily our lane of work, but I think it's so critical, especially given the conversation we had yesterday regarding risk tolerance and floodplain. They're all connected on the land. My questions are related to the engagement process. So primarily, first I'd like to ask, was there an option to also include an elected official on the advisory from the local government? That's my first question.
I'm not sure. It seemed like it was a staff to staff invite at the meeting I attended in March 2nd. There was the planning manager from the city of Nelson and then the steering committee for the forest from the province and from First Nations.
Okay, I have a few
Yep,
seconds.
absolutely, yep.
So the next one is as we were receiving information from, correct me if I'm wrong on this name, Yunus Alia or Alia Yunus? Yunus Alia, the professor?
Yes.
So we have science that has shown the way we do forest management directly ties into possible risks at the residential level. So it's again going back to kind of what we talked about yesterday. But we know that science isn't necessarily being embedded. And I had asked on any of my forestry referrals that there's a line that basically says we're not professional forests, and there's information available stating how and when we do this that should be reflected. So when we get engagement materials, it sounds like staff will be then bringing that to RAC, and that's where political engagement will occur. That kind of standard statement I wanted on all of my forestry referrals, is that something that can be a part of the discussion that you guys would bring forward?
Yeah, I believe so. We can take that back to the province and say that's something we want to make sure we're spending time on as part of our engagement.
Right, and do you need that? Do you know what we're referring to, or do you want us to send you any of that?
If you could send me more detail, I think that would be helpful, yeah.
Will do, thanks.
I pulled them up and some staff have attended at least the session for sure, I think, but I can send information on the studies.
Thank you.
Director Weatherhead, Cunningham and Vandenberg, right now, Director Weatherhead, go ahead.
Thank you,
please.
through the chair, hi Dana. My question is around if just your opinion or from what insight you've gained in the Arrow, would there be any reason to believe that just because we don't have the same let's say direct Indigenous engagement that we kind of may just get left right off this, the future plans of this, because that seems to be a thing. I don't know if it's a thing or not.
I will say I don't have an answer to that
Yeah.
at this time. What I know is from kind of researching their public materials on their website, but it's a question I can take back if you're curious if there's any talk of timing for the Arrow Lakes timber supply area.
And I would be interested in knowing that. I'm a timber supply, but when I talk to say Interfor or related, they're like, oh yeah, we're just taking what's left now. It seems like, oh my, that sounds terrifying. So anyways, I'd just like to know that there is a larger body of eyes on that.
Yes, I'm happy to take that question back to the province and bring it back to RAC to see what they say.
Thank you.
Director Cunningham.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking at the map that's labeled page 14. And I noticed that the area actually has a jog around Shawmut on the one side of the Shawmut, probably Weimer too from this Jesse. So, you want to see what I mean?
Yeah,
So area G is half in and half out,
that's correct.
typical.
You don't like
I
reaching our jurisdictional boundaries.
I understand. So that's interesting because where it looks like, except for that little jog that towards the letter Salmo, is basically the high point of the area of the watershed. That's a guess. And perhaps the chair, that is access areas A and C, I believe, that are included.
This does show IJ. No, sorry, I've got the wrong line pulled out here.
I'm looking at page 14, the label 14, there's a map there.
Oh, so they
I don't think J is in the TSA because
it captures at least a piece of areas A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Yes, that's section G, up towards, but from the line up the highway there between Salmo and Nelson. Yeah, how about halfway the guy? There is a sign, by the way, it says leaving one forest district in the other. But yeah, so that portion, the northern portion of area G will be in it. From what I see though, area A and C will also be in it, and probably in B as well. Is that right?
That's
From what you see?
Yeah.
Okay. Looks interesting. I'm worried, of course, about forest health is important. But in this day and age, I'm really worried about water, as in the importance of the resource. And since Weimer's not into it, and Weimer water is a matter of great concern right now, that has been taken away from me, perhaps for a good reason.
Thank you, Dr. Cunningham. May I add something
Yes.
to that? That even though we've only had one meeting and it was more about how we could participate, we communicated that to them right away. Water is going to be a huge concern, and we talked about how we could get them in contact with some of the water user groups that are formal improvement districts or things like that, to make sure that they're included in this process, because we highlighted that that would be very important feedback from us. So
Very good, yeah.
thanks for reporting it.
Yeah, the watersheds are an important thing, and the way they're managed is a very important thing as well. And if you manage a watershed by logging a third of it every year, in a very short time, you're not gonna have much of a watershed left. You're gonna get, and we all know what happens when that happens, so. I think that's a real consideration, and I like the wording, you know, it's very carefully, the wording is very carefully, landscape plan, wonderful. I mean, landscapes bring thoughts of all sorts of wonderful things. And I'm hoping it's more than just the word. Thank you. And thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Director Vandenberg, and then David off.
Thank you. I guess when I'm reading through the report through the chair, there's a lot of question as to where is this going? Director Cunningham's point, the landscape plan, it sounds good, but what does that mean? This whole thing is like, what does it mean? Where's it going to go? When I reach out and talk to Creston Community Forest, they have no knowledge of these conversations taking place. So then there's a question of what is the engagement plan going to be like in the future? They were apprised by the manager of Lower Kootenay Man yesterday and had a meeting in the town of Creston last night, to which I have no idea where that conversation went, why the conversation was had. The invitation for us to attend a group to have these discussions, perhaps to flesh out what the framework's going to look like, that sort of thing, is probably not a bad idea. I wonder about our staff expertise and the timing in which that would have to require commitment, that sort of thing. This is not our line of work, as Amy has pointed out, and but it could be. It's an area of interest for sure. But I really am concerned that the experts in our industry not being engaged at this point in time, and it's unclear to them as to when they will be. So I'm wondering if it's prudent for us to consider, for the first number of meetings that we have elected officials attend these meetings to determine, to be a part of and understand where this is going, so that we can help set direction for staff. It's kind of my point of view on it. And I have crafted a motion to that effect that I could put forward after our preliminary discussions.
Thanks, Director. Director Davidoff.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, my question, Dana mentioned the pilots have already, they've done pilots elsewhere. Do we know what the result of those pilots is, and is that shareable with us? Like, because if they've done pilots, then obviously this is working somewhere else or has been completed somewhere else. So through the chair to staff, any pilot results to share with us?
Through the chair, what I know is research from their public facing website, so I'm happy to compile where you can find that and send it forward. And then you'll know what I know. But I do think I recall that they had some information, some project pages for the timber supply areas that were part of the pilot project. I'm not sure if they were completed or near the end of completion, if memory serves, but I'm happy to find that for you and send that through to everyone.
That would be good. I have a couple other hands up, but further, Director Davidoff, you have the floor still. I have 3 other hands up for.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Did you have a follow-up, Director Davidoff, or are you good?
No, I'm good with, the
Okay,
response. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we'll take that out. Okay, so I saw a flurry of hands and I have some thoughts too, but I'll hold them. Here we go. Dannenberg, Watson, Popoff on that specifically, or?
Through the chair, I would propose a motion at this point, so I'd like to concede
I still
conversation to my colleagues first.
Yeah, I still have my points to raise.
Yeah.
Okay, and Mr. Watson, was that on the pilot project results or?
It's on the overall expectations of staff that I think we need to be really cognizant of. I'm grateful we can participate in this. I do want to state bluntly, we get involved in engagements and honestly, no discredit to you, but how many things have we engaged on and 10 years later, it's the same thing. So I think we need to recognize that this is, like, I'm grateful staff can be on an advisory committee, but our expectations around staff doing any kind of extra work on our behalf when we can look it up is probably something we should own to some degree. We know the planning plan. It's extensive, so I just want to note that I don't expect staff to go and find a bunch of stuff, or if there's external entities such as a community forest, I would not encourage our staff be a vehicle for that, because this is all provincial. So I'm grateful we can be on the advisory committee and we can bring our community context to that. But I think in my perspective, I would caution that we use staff as the vehicle to enter everyone else into this conversation. Just to be cognizant again of their time and resources. We don't have this on the work plan because it's not here, because you didn't know you were going to be doing it. And again, it's good that we're involved. If anything, I'd love to move to a direction where we can actually zone the crown so that that gets us triggered immediately and we don't rely on engagement sessions to make sure they're including the communities at the bottom. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through my points because I see sort of second time in building on. I can run through my points because it may or may not matter the first time. Okay, so I'm not surprised. It's a different approach. There were higher level plans. This isn't all that new, including all industry, all backcountry, all this, that. And Silkwood decision said the higher level plan doesn't apply there. So I'm not surprised that this is a Indigenous government engagement rethink, because I would be inclined to, I mean, I heard directly from Tanaha sources that they could go to court and get the same decision Silkwood got to Historic Jungle. Nobody's been up there except. So I don't think anyone should take this new direction as a surprise. What I want to do is better understand the new direction. So right now, reading through what you were able to glean for us, we know this has been going on for months. We had a conversation on January 8th about this sitting in Creston. It was kind of side conversations with Isaac at the time, and he was engaged in this 3 months ago or more. The initial stages were to entail negotiation of a Section 7 agreement. If that's part of the conversations right now, that should be political participation or listening. The ears in the room, maybe you couldn't speak, but the ears in the room should be political, not staff. If you're talking about Section 7 engagement and the overall process is to what the word partnership's been used, a provincial Indigenous government partnership. What would that mean? Who would have decision authority, what level, at what time? That's political. And maybe none of us should be in the room. When I say us, my peers elected, but UBCM should maybe be there. And so that's my first question. Is UBCM going to be the better resource than our staff or our members of the board to get a handle on this as it rolls out? Because as it rolls next TSA, it becomes more complex and it will take more time. So I would rather us think through, and we don't have to do it today, but is UBCM already engaged? I mean, minimal direction to staff for me would lean towards that question, and Stuart or somebody could find that out at a very high level. Going beyond that, I'd like to know if the other regional districts are jumping in. And again, this comes back to the bit of the research as to what and where were these pilot projects. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't in the Chilcotin because of the dilemma there. So the engagement now, I'm I wouldn't understand how 3 staff members could volunteer to do something that's not on the work plan without a direction to staff. So the burning question in my mind is, when is the next meeting proposed? And can we come back a month from now with either direction to staff to say, yes, take up whatever amount of time, and within what limitations engage in this. But I'd like to see something in writing from the province about what is that engagement role? What is your purpose of being there? Are you to listen and never to speak? Would you speak? On whose behalf would you speak? So the next meeting is not going to be for another month. I'd rather that we not commit to engaging 3 staff persons on this. But then we'll know what UBCM is doing, if anything. We'll know what our neighbors are doing, if anything. And we'll know how meaningful our participation in the early stage is. I don't want us to be viewed as by default being in agreement with any process without understanding what that process is. This is quite important. I'm just going to check, see if I had any other points. Everything else I think has already been made. Those are my key thoughts. So we did have a return to the speakers list if we can. I've got other input. I had Popoff and Cunningham. Nobody else online. Director Popoff.
So a question to the chair, having read this a couple of times and I don't fully understand it, but I have 2 community forests in my area, NAFCOR and CIFCO, and it says, or 1,200 acre in the interior, hectare. I don't know how many hectares they have. Are they under this or not? So, that's one question that I would ask. And the other one is woodlot licenses. I see that mentioned in there, but that's gonna come at a later date. We have a woodlot license in South Spokane in their watershed. And that would impact the watershed and the water system for South Spokane. And the last question I've got, and I know through BACM, we were lobbying for, private land logging, some regulations on private land logging. Is, there was more than one resolution for that through UBCM. It's never happened, and this may be outside the scope of what we're talking about. But is the province considering regulations for private land logging or not at this point?
Private land's interesting because that is an industrial use on the landscape. Sangeeta, did you know that? I see your hand there.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer the question before of this around staff involvement. Happy to receive feedback from you on what that looks like. Like Dan mentioned, we are just starting to understand what this is about. In regards to Area H is not part of this, but private managed forest lands is a designation that a property owner can achieve on their property to reduce their taxation when they log, but they have to manage that property for logging in a way that is aligned with the Private Managed Forest Lands Act, I believe. So there is stuff online about it, but for a private landowner to just log their whole property before they decide to build a house in areas where we have no controls, that's a going concern, and we just can't do anything about that right now because we don't have the tools to enforce that. So I just want to answer those questions.
So just not aligned with this, but while we have Sangeeta here, in review of our OCPs, is there a vehicle or something that can be put on there to basically provide direction, and would it be enforceable?
Yep. When Johnson's Landing happened, I recall asking the lawyer, like, what can we do to control, potential landslide risk in the future? Because there's no trees left on the lot. And they said you can do tree removal development permit areas. So that would basically mean that any property owner that owns a large lot and wants to log it, and if they're in an area where there's a tree removal DPA, they would need to get approval from us, hire a qualified professional, probably a qualified forester, to help, address any issues that may occur with the trees themselves, but also geotech. So it would help to mitigate any potential risk from landslides or things like that may occur on that private land.
So she answered my question. We can establish a DPA through our OCP review process.
Yes, yeah, it may be more complicated than that. We have a bit of time potentially this morning, so I guess the key point here is what you'd asked Director Pop-Up is not under the Forest and Range Practices Act, it's under a separate act, not potentially part of this particular cohort of review, which kind of makes sense, so probably go up one act at a time. If you continue with the second time, I have Cunningham and then Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to take attention to page 20, which says the governance structure.
Yeah.
Because it starts out, of course, with the province and the establishment, then it gets to the leadership table, who has First Nations and the province leaders. Then it goes to the steering committee, which has First Nations and the province, same group. And then it has that technical working off. I don't see regional district except way at the very bottom where it says advisory groups at par with the general public and special interest groups with the HBC press releases, open houses and community meetings. And there we are, municipalities, regional districts, and go in interest groups, right at the very bottom. So it seems to me that they don't want us to take this. They said, we're the province, we take care of forestry. You guys just sort of sit back and watch and we'll let you comment once in a while. That's the feeling I get about it.
So appreciate how you framed that, because I have similar concerns, and that's why I think our next move might be UBCM and say, UBCM, what are you doing for us on this? Because that is one way to elevate us collectively, because this isn't one TSA. This will be every timber supplier.
If I may, Chair.
Yes.
I have a feeling that UBCM doesn't know about it because it's it's only a special area. And I don't think, I'd like to know how many other regional districts have a special area in there that's looking at this FLP government structure.
So it could be part of OPS staff to follow up.
That's what I think, I'd like to know. If anybody else is in it, or we're just one of the special ones because they're testing us, trying it out. If it works here, which is one of the, because let's face it, we ditch more than anybody else. Because they get our water rights more than any, well, we have more water sources.
Yes.
This is not, use my language, and we get into water rights more than anybody else, because of the reduced water rights. And also because of the topography here, we also get into a whole pile of other things that involve forestry.
We have a challenging landscape.
So maybe that's what it said, if it'll succeed in Kootenai, then we can go anywhere. That's my feeling. But they're doing it, it looks definitely, besides the province and the First Nations, the rest of us are not participatory in this.
So continuing for the second times right now, not seeing anyone else online, I have Vandenberg and Watson. I don't know if you wanted to propose a recommendation, if you wanted to hear or Chair Watson first, or the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, it becomes pretty apparent to me that this is a conversation that's leaning itself towards political. We have a lot of questions. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I don't know that we're comfortable being there. The UBCM is a interesting option, and I think that can play itself. And when I look at the map, it does incorporate all of A, B, and C. And so I'm a little bit concerned with the conversations for a community forest group. I would like to put forward a motion to be considered by the group. I have forwarded to the chair and to Stuart because I'm not online to be able to do that in chat.
Could you forward it to Carly? She would get it in chat faster than I would.
Okay.
Or you had it.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I have it, I can put it in chat.
You have it?
I copied the board chair when I responded to your question the other day.
Okay, so if I would like.
Oh, maybe it's different wording. Sorry, is this different wording from a few days ago?
This is what just got sent.
This is what I just said.
Okay, go ahead.
So
Chat.
that the Rural Affairs Committee recommend that the board authorize attendance by one or more elected officials at the first two Kootenai Lake Forest Landscape Plan Advisory Group sessions for scoping purposes only, with staff participation limited to the receipt of materials and administrative coordination, and that any technical or ongoing staff involvement return to the board once the process reaches mapping, modeling, target setting, or draft objective review.
So that's a motion put forward that would require board authorization if we carry forward and tap to the board, yes. Do we have a second for that recommendation?
Yeah, Chair, I'll second that, but I have
Okay.
a friendly amendment, request.
Okay, I'm gonna let, Director Vandenberg speak to it first, then I'll go to you.
Well, and
Further.
so I did previously speak to it, in terms of why I'm putting it forward and the reasons for, to make sure that we're kind of in a position as elected officials, if it is political, which I believe it is, to determine where this is going and how our resources are best utilized for this, being respectful to staff and their time. So that would be my, lead into it.
Okay, let's go to Director Davidoff, and I have questions about that and that as well. Go ahead, Director Davidoff.
Yeah, this is, I don't know if Kelly will see if this is friendly or not, but I'm asking, I would like to see that it be 2 Rural Affairs Committee members that are here, or at least 1 Rural Affairs Committee member and 1 impacted municipal member. That's what I'm working on here, because definitely we need someone from, I think we can fund it through general admin if there's a rural affairs and a muni rep. But if it's rural affairs only, I can see muni saying this should be funded from general if there's any cost involved with participation. So I will go with that the board authorize attendance by 1 municipal and 1 rural affairs, 1 electoral area director. Kelly, would you consider that as a friendly?
Yes, I would actually, based on what I understand, the conversations in my area are.
Carly, did you capture that then?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're good. We're setting up a 30-minute conversation for tomorrow. And on the speakers list happens to be Watson. Please go ahead.
You know, look at the agenda tomorrow, just keep it in mind. So a couple of notes, I have previous comments that relate to this motion. First, I absolutely am grateful staff are involved. We have community planning, we have zoning, we have regulations, and honestly, that is where all of the focus has been on risk mitigation. When EDMA comes in, that is further impacting us to manage risk management. So staff involvement in these discussions where the risk initiates is a critical key connection, and they are the experts in terms of what's in our departments. So I'm grateful staff are involved. I just really want to be cognizant of their time and energy, and not expect them to do a bunch of extra stuff on our behalf. So I do want staff involved. I'll just note that while I respect the notion that UBCM be involved, UBCM does not have local context. They don't have our OCPs, they don't have our zoning, and honestly, UBCM is very Victoria focused. I can just say that, so I'm gonna say it. The final info to us, I would expect it to come on referral as all forestry planning, and that's also like, so we could be involved in terms of proposing and the document in terms of engagement. Yes, bring it to us at these checkpoints, but eventually it's a referral where our actual OCP information gets embedded, or zoning information. So I still think that that's a good process. I'm not opposed to what you're proposing here, but I don't want to, I want to support staff's proposal in terms of their involvement for their expertise, and also because I really want to know where do we get to being able to redirect the risk mitigation we're required to take on to the Crown. And this might be one of the conversations we can do that, and I would rely on staff to do that based on our direction to say, please, we're doing risk assessments, we're doing hazard assessments, we're doing mitigation. What are you doing, Crown? That is a critical conversation in this. So I can support this. I do know the Village of Caslow asked me what I thought about this, and I said, I have no idea. I haven't read the report yet. Read the report, and I said, oh, sounds like it's an engagement, but I don't know anything else. So I appreciate a municipal might be interested, but I would encourage, if that's the case, we need to give them some heads up, because I don't want a 30-minute conversation tomorrow. That's just more management. The last comment is the tree removal DPA. Yes, that was proposed in the Ainsworth zoning at one time. That is an option. I want to stop talking about residential regulation for risk mitigation while not really pushing on Crown risk mitigation. Tree removal DPA would do nothing about Crown. It does nothing about larger landscape level management. And so it's an option. It does not address the bigger issue here.
Again, slightly off topic on that one, but we have a little time to flag these for our OCP reviews. I'm going to make one more suggestion, if I can, to the mover seconder, that I don't think the board should authorize attendance. We should request attendance. We haven't been invited. It looks pretty, well, I think it should say, recommend the board request attendance by one or by, et cetera, muni and rural. And the other thing in this wording, I would almost take the word, limited out. That, staff participation, continue for receipt of materials and administrative coordination.
I consider that a friendly, it's up to Kelly.
Director Vandenberg?
I would agree that substituting the word request for authorize and the limited comment, I
That
would
staff
fine with.
continue, they are our mechanism for gaining information. More discussion about this recommendation, sure, on the recommendation, Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. I have some difficulty with the recommendation. Because if we look at local government involvement advisory group, and I'm referring to page 22, that's 22, of the report, it says how it's picked. And it says active ongoing involvement, participant, regular meetings, et cetera, share expertise, knowledge, and community requires a time commitment 4 times a year. My question through the staff, who picked the 4 times a year, did they or did you?
Through the chair, that's through the province.
So the province picked it.
Yeah.
Okay, so in other words, we go in and we should be meeting maybe 4 times. It doesn't sound like much involvement actually, if you know what I mean. It's sort of like a pat in the head and we'll give you the information and ask you questions when we want it. Okay, and it says members are selected. It doesn't say we all could go, it says members are selected and invited based on the relevance to the FLP.
So hence we request, not
That's what we can request, yes, and but it says selected and invited. And indeed, I think that although I certainly don't have a disagreement with the proposed resolution at this time, I think it's a little premature. Because I think, first of all, I would like to suggest that we see who on the board would be like to be selected and invited, and we could submit their names. But of course, I agree with the chair in that, in fact, staff should play the lead here because they're the ones who know, and they can give us the report and can feed us the concise edition with a wide range of viewpoints, and I think that's really, really important here. Because the next thing is, because we are part of a public and interest group engagement. I guess we're an interest group, huh? Because we're certainly we're not given any power here to do anything. And I find that really frustrating. So, although I like the idea, I think the resolution is premature insofar as I basically select a member and put their names forward, including members of staff. Because that's what it says in the local government involvement advisory group. That's what they want. And if we're not, it's their game. And and if they don't like what we're saying, then they say, sorry guys. Well, we're only gonna pick one person from your section or whatever. Or we're gonna pick one director from you. I don't know what they're gonna do, but it says require a time commitment. It says 4 times a year.
Yep.
How much can we do in 4 times a year, quite frankly? As far as actually guiding this kind of thing. Because if they're talking about, well, first we'll do this area, and then we're gonna do this creek, and then we're gonna do that part of the lake, that takes way more than 4 times a year. So that says to me exactly where we are in this game. We're at the bottom of the totem pole, just like in the picture on page 20. And so so that means personally, one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be a big part of the public and interest group engagement. Because Area G is affected.
Thanks, Director. We will request to see where it goes. Director Weatherhead, and then I was gonna have Carly, maybe I'll have Carly first. Can you read back what you have, just so it's crystal clear? I don't get in trouble with the minutes.
The Rural Affairs Committee recommend that the board request attendance by 1 municipal and 1 rural elected official at the first 2 Kootenai Lake Forest Landscape Plan Advisory Group sessions for scoping purposes only. Staff participation continue to receipt of materials and administrative coordination, and that any technical or ongoing staff involvement return to the board once the process reaches mapping, modeling, target setting, or draft objective review.
to the staff participation continue for receipt of,
Or continue to include or the receipt of.
or yes, grammar there a little bit. And then there was one other slight grammatical thing I think we jumped over earlier, but it's probably fun. Director Whitehead, and then maybe we're ready. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. These proposed changes actually don't apply to woodlots anyways.
Correct.
So I am, maybe I'm just having troubles with the motion to understand the necessity of it, beyond what our staff, can be bringing back to us, through their professionalism and knowledge.
Is my one thought is if we want to elevate this to UBCM, that may be just simply more of a political push. Oh, sorry, that reminds me then of what the other word was. It should not say at the first two advisory group sessions, it should be at the next two, because you may have already missed the first. Oh. I don't know, the next two. Sorry, back to your question though. Yeah, there's a few omissions right now. I think it's just forward looking to, do we need to have more of an understanding now versus waiting until, as Director Cunningham said, I see a lot more hands coming up again. It's pretty clear they want to talk to us later, not now. This is a test. Will they talk to us now?
Sure.
Well, I see Director Vandenberg and sorry, did we have anyone else?
In fact, Director Vandenberg's doing the wrap up. I'd like to speak about it.
Okay, just a second. Any other, so then Carter, there were two little minor word changes. If that's okay, the next two sessions.
Yeah.
Okay. No other conversation? The third time, Director?
Yes, thank you, and I know I'm going for the third time.
Yep.
But this thing, I think, because it includes municipalities, and we don't have municipalities here, this will go to the board, and I know that municipalities will be upset that they weren't consulted as to what their relevance. So I'm asking this, I'm not making the motion, or I can't, we're on the floor already, but I am suggesting, would it be in line to make a motion and say, that the board, that, members of the board be invited to put their names forward for inclusion in this committee, besides staff?
I think the board chair will test the waters tomorrow. She may refer this to a future board meeting, but I think that's something we can't predetermine. This is just one committee to the board.
Chair, what I meant is, for me, if many times as a commission, we have been chastised for not involving the municipalities.
Mhm.
And I think when this comes forward tomorrow, I think we should have a corollary motion that says that members of the board be invited to put their names together because this involves municipalities. They need this part as much as anybody else. And I think that's important because I'm tired of being chastised by municipalities when part of them are included or not included. Well, why didn't you invite us?
I'm used to being chastised. To me, that's a process question for the board chair tomorrow, so I wouldn't see it being in order for this committee to try and define tomorrow's process at board. That's process for the board. But Chair Watson, your
Well,
thoughts?
just two things. I did invite a couple municipalities to attend today, noting that this was on the agenda. Also that I would say that when we have items, this motion already invites a municipality to be a part of it, so it's there. But in terms of content, it would be important that this report is received on the board agenda so they know what they're referring to. So normally we would not do that, and I just say if we could do that on the agenda.
Stuart?
Through the chair, maybe a question for Dana is, City of Nelson was consulted directly as well, so are they dealing with the municipalities separately?
They are.
Yes,
So they're being engaged and
through the chair, the municipalities are being engaged separately, staff.
So can we add 2 more minutes, this report, because Dan has pulled a lot of information together. If that's okay, we'll just be up more of agenda with a little extra information from this report.
And just, because we can't, because you said we could. Just to note that I think the difference is gonna be that if municipality wants to participate, it's the Village of Castle who reached out to me, their staff don't have capacity to participate. So I think it's a consideration that if a municipal director wants to come forward, the City of Nelson has staffing that would have a bit more capacity than a smaller municipality, so we might wanna just reference that we're including them, and they do have their own process. We don't want to supersede their process, but we also want to make space for the small municipalities who don't have capacity.
So Director Cunningham, you'll be ready tomorrow in either way to make sure that it's here.
No, I won't be ready tomorrow, but that's okay.
Sorry. Well, we will finish this recommendation.
Go ahead.
Wrap, Director Vandenberg, please. And we'll maybe go to the vote.
Great, thank you through the chair and for the close. Just to talk to some of the points that were raised. This is being proactive as opposed to reactive. And I think that that's a good thing that we start talking about that and preparing ourselves to be in a place to be proactive. Secondly, I would like to suggest that this does not exclude staff by any stretch. The motion is clear about that. It's important that they receive the information as we move forward. And really, this is the motion is for the purpose of determining the scope for staff direction. And the elected officials attending that can help design and put that forward. So once again, I believe that this motion is proactive and properly moves us forward in this. We'll mention that the town of Creston has also been reached to in terms of the municipalities that contacted, not only as Nelson, but now as of yesterday evening, the town of Creston as well. Of course, we don't know where that conversation went. So, yes, thank you.
Hey, don't see any other speakers for good on the topic on this recommendation. Go to board tomorrow, all in favor? Any opposed? So, thank you. Opposed, Director? Or, oh, no, sorry.
That was, yes. I guess I got that, Mr. Chair, I thought it was premature.
I
I
understand.
like the idea, but I think it's premature.
Okay, understood. But that is carried, and we'll go to board tomorrow for a 5-minute conversation. Thanks, Dana. We then have, for information, subdivision bylaw review project engagement summary. Stephanie has overview report and then a lot of stuff on key themes. Please go ahead, give us your overview.
Thank you, Chair Jackman. As you know, this report provides an update on the RDCK's subdivision bylaw review project and specifically summarizes the engagement work completed to date. The current subdivision bylaw was last updated in 2011 with its originating framework dating back to 1998. Given increasing development pressures, population growth, and recent changes to provincial housing legislation, there is a clear need to update the bylaw. Engagement to date has included webinars with qualified professionals, stakeholder interviews, and separate workshops with the regional board, RDCK staff, and provincial agencies. The dedicated project page on the RDCK's Engage platform is also the main tool being used to keep community members informed. All of these engagement inputs help identify key challenges and priorities to inform the next phase of work, which is the actual drafting of the new bylaw. And just to summarize, the 5 main themes that emerged from the engagement so far were water supply, sewerage systems, access, bylaw administration, and long-term planning. Since these areas are central to the development of a new subdivision bylaw, additional targeted engagement will be carried out to refine these key themes to inform the drafting of the new bylaw. Looking ahead, the project's now entering the final phase, which is drafting of the new subdivision bylaw that will reflect the current legislation, incorporate best practices in planning and engineering, and respond directly to the feedback received. The draft bylaw is anticipated to be brought forward in late spring 2026 with board consideration, and then formal readings expected in late summer 2026, so perhaps August as an example. The report is for information, and that concludes my summary. As the committee knows, I'm happy to listen to your feedback and or answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
So opening up for questions, comments. Better get back to my screen. Let's see. Go ahead, Director Papa. Say two. Go ahead.
I didn't have a chance to read the whole report. That's no excuse, but the question is, before you bring the bylaw revised bylaw to the chair, you expect us directors to provide comments on the report that you have? Or is that the expectation, I should say?
Through the chair to Director Popoff, in terms of the next steps and flow as to when the elected officials would see the draft bylaw, staff anticipate that we're gonna go away with the consulting team Urban Systems and work on that drafting of the new bylaw. We propose to bring forward a draft of the new subdivision bylaw to a committee meeting for the board to go through and provide their feedback. And we're targeting right now late spring, so that could be June, the June Rural Affairs Committee meeting as a potential date.
So through the chair, if I may, supplemental, so there is no expectation for the directors to provide any comments on the proposed bylaw. We will see it in a red line stage, and that will be the opportunity for us to provide comments at that time, is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Watson, I had a couple of thoughts too.
Just first want to note that the summary report you provided was really good. It was great to see the combined, you've done a lot of engagement in terms of professionals on the board, and I do think it was quite reflective of what I heard at the workshop, so great. My question is actually to the public. When does this bylaw go to the public?
Through the chair to Director Watson, the draft bylaw that our team is working on will come forward to a Rural Affairs Committee meeting, and at that stage, once it lands on that agenda, the draft bylaw will be available to the public. I mentioned just in my summary that we have the RDCK Engage platform. We have a project page for the subdivision bylaw review, and at any time a community member could reach out to ask about the project in general. So when the committee members see the draft bylaw will be the first time the public will see the draft as well.
Further?
Yeah, and I just want to note, no discount to staff, but the public doesn't look at our Engage platform, and we can put things out there, but I would have anticipated some form of public meeting that would have garnered attention around ensuring residents understood what this was. We already have it. It's an update. This is the information. You got Sangeeta's hand up there. So I'm curious about that because yes, it's available to them. It's not, when we talk about community engagement, those aspects are not the best vehicles for them to get this information. And I think it's quite a shift for good reasons. I'm not discounting it, but it can render us a lot of extra work post approval or adoption. So I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can be a little more creative about how to engage the public and not necessarily that you're gonna have the public challenge the technical data that can't be challenged. But it's more of an awareness and any further input that we may not have considered. So I would recommend that we consider that in some way.
Yeah, Sangeeta, do you have
Yeah, I think Director Watson just spoke to it. It is a technical document, just like our floodplain management bylaw. We don't do this type of robust engagement that you do for an OCP for zoning bylaw change. I'm not sure, and this is a question to Stephanie, I think APHCs will also receive the document. And we do have these public forums. I just wanted to clarify that under the LGA, we're not actually required to do that robust engagement piece, but we're doing everything we can to make sure we're informing the public and gaining their perspective if they have it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just to dovetail off of Sangeeta's comments, we can definitely circulate the draft bylaw to APHCs, and we have incorporated within our planning services messaging on notice of requirement letters for folks who do have subdivision applications or for inquiries at the counter that we're developing and working on creating a new subdivision bylaw and what those potential impacts could be for folks and the timing of that as well. So people who have an in-stream application can turn their minds to that. So we are messaging that at the counter with current subdivision referrals and applications that we receive from the provincial approving officer. So that's already happening at the counter level. and public facing from our team about the project.
That's a good mechanism because in-stream applicants might be kind of shocked if the rules change. You had a third time and then, or supplement?
I just wanna know, I'm aware of our requirements, I'm aware the LGA doesn't require this, what I'm saying is the public is often, it's looking at it from a different way to get the public to be engaged with us, and that's what I was referencing. In my mind, it diminishes the pushback post all of our work, and it's just getting more, when you have a public meeting about something, people wanna understand it, it's more direct than a portal, like the amount of things we could go on a portal for, honestly, it's not a functional tool anymore, and that's not just us, it's the inundation of information out there. So I'm trying to be more creative about how residents are up to date with us and what we're doing, and so it's communications piece, it's not a, you're not doing a good job piece, or you're not following a rule, I know that.
Maybe I'll go,
But just appreciate the feedback.
maybe I'll go ahead of Director Vandenberg and pop out here for the first time on my notes here. I was encouraged that you got good comments, I thought, back from, the professionals in that side. So yeah, if you go out to the APHCs, that's good. And then there's an opportunity to also send, if we do first, second reading with substantial draft, you could also just send it maybe to the people who participated so far. That would be the easiest thing to do, I would think, if that's not considered preferential. I mean, they took the time to engage first time round, and we'll hear if they think you heard what they said or not. Yeah, other than that, I would like to make sure that the draft takes advantage of any ability we have to collect information, because I did like to see I appreciated the comments that don't try and duplicate the authority of somebody else. But definitely, I agree with that. But if somebody had to submit this or that to some other authority, we're probably the only reliable source to find that 10 or 20 years from now. Just like I think staff's doing a great job collecting information on hazards, like yesterday's workshop. We've got to glean everything we can. We're not able to act on it all, but we can be hopefully fairly painlessly, we can be a database. So every time there's a health report or something on a septic or under this or that, if it just gets attached to that file, I think that would be a good thing. If the subdivision bylaw says if you have to do this report to this authority, we want a copy. So Director Vandenberg and Papa.
I am good. I will cede my spot.
You will, what did the US Senate say? There's a singing for that.
I'm not politically
Return
active in
time
that realm. I'm
You
sorry.
never watched. You yield your time or something to Director Papa. Please. go
Yeah,
ahead.
Chair, to yield the floor. Or you-
Yes,
or-
okay.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
or
Thank you,
yield the rest of
Director
my
Gable.
time too.
Okay, so to Director Papa.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm kind of chuckling about the process here. But anyways, just to be clear, and I think Chair Jackman identified it. So when the first time we'll see the red line will be at the RAC meeting, and then our advisory planning commissions and heritage commissions will see it at the same time after the RAC meeting, or when will they see it for their input?
Through the chair to Director Popoff, the project team hasn't got down to specific timing as to when we would circulate the draft bylaw. Potentially, once the draft is available, we would get it on the next relevant Rural Affairs Committee agenda. And just in terms of efficiency, when we do have a draft available, more than likely we try to circulate that out to the APHCs at the same time. So perhaps we could collect those comments and they could be available for that committee meeting as well, which may be helpful for elected officials when discussing the draft bylaw.
Super, thanks. That sounds really great.
Thanks. Any other input? We'll see this soon, I guess. It'll be coming back to us. Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Item 7.3, planning quarterly report. I'm gonna come out the gate with one, just kind of sad. There's an item here, electoral area F, reduced setbacks, but where the Board of Variance cannot achieve quorum. This has happened to us how many times in the past? There's no quorum for the Board of Variance. Maybe Stuart, is there can we, or Sangeeta, can we try to advertise again? Once we were so bad, we had a deceased person on the board of grants list. How do we get people to use that tool
It is being advertised.
again?
It was in the April 2nd papers and it's being advertised again for April 25th.
It's in East Shore Main Street.
No.
It's online, it comes out continual updates every week now. And it's not East Shore Main Street, it is the Kootenai Main Street. That was the one thing that really jumped out at me. Comments or questions on the, on this, quarterly report? Lots of items again. Director Popov.
Yeah, I seen Area H North, Steinbach.
Watercourse development permit, reconstruction of the dwelling in progress. Is that a fire loss or are you wondering about?
Yeah, I don't know if they've got the name correct or not.
Sangeeta, you don't have them all in your head. You sure?
No, but Nelson's online, maybe.
Oh, great. And then I do see Director David off there. Nelson, are you familiar with the Steinbach application?
I'm not. I could look into it though and get back to Director Popoff.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Director Davidoff and Weatherhead, please go ahead, Director Davidoff.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So on page 3 of the report, all of the referrals and all of the other charts refer to the area that's in, but that is not included on those subdivision applications referred from the Ministry of Transportation and Transit. And could we please have that in the first column so we know what area it's in?
It's in the file number, I think. Stuart, you had that.
Yeah, through the chair, it's the last letter of the file number. So for example, the first one is S2601E, that's an area E.
Yeah, I figured that out through the chair, but it's just cleaner if they just be consistent with everything above it.
Take that under consideration, Sangeeta. Add a column to the chart to pull out the file number referencing the electoral area, if that is easy enough to do. Okay, so that's noted, I guess, Director Davidoff. I have Weatherhead and Vandenberg.
Actually, I think I figured it out. I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Director Vandenberg.
I just wanted to point out that this question that Director Davidoff raises, we raise every time we look at this report, and I am guilty as probably the most guilty. And of course, it's all good until you get to the letters HN, and I have to try to remember what does HN mean. So, I mean, this happens each and every time, and I try not to complicate it, but I'm not the only one.
So I'm not keeping track, but staff might be. We might get a year-end report on repeat questions. Back to a little more seriously, because they're all good questions. Make sure this information is clear. I like, as I say, I like the summary, cross-referencing the total across the whole works. It's always nice to have. Sorry, Director Davidoff, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do, Chair. And it's not for us. It's also for the public that views these. The key thing is that they won't know that, and they won't know what HN means. So if we just are consistent with how we do all the other ones, I do send this out because people ask what's happening in Area I in terms of all these things. So I have sent this out before and have received the question back. What are these? And I had to explain the E or the I at the end. But the key thing is that let's make it user friendly and reader friendly. That's the point. It's not for so much for directors, but even directors, we got to do a double take sometimes. Thank you, Chair.
Duly noted. I will go to Director Weatherhead for the first time. Go for it and then pop off.
Okay, thank you. Just thinking of staff's efficiency, when we have a file number like that, is there a way for us directors to for our reminder's sake, is to a place to access just that file number so we can just quickly check and not have to contact planning and, make it a big thing? Just a question.
Sangeeta, do we have that? We don't have that level of access, I don't think, into the detailed files. I'm always afraid if I looked at something, you might muck it up. I'd rather ask you guys.
Yeah.
We don't have full access to the file with Ministry of Transportation,
That's one.
but we do have some records.
Uh-huh.
Yes, if directors were interested in finding out more about that subdivision, then
Yeah.
you just call Laura at the front desk.
Yeah. That's,
Easier than direct access
Yeah.
for file. We wouldn't know if a report was imminently gonna be updated either,
oh,
or the latest action. That's for the advantage of staff, knows exactly what's going on.
thank you.
That makes sense. Director Popoff, for the second time, any more comments or
Yeah.
questions on the report?
Yeah, just to share in response to the two directors that, fail to understand what HN stands for and the public too. And just a little bit of background, Area H is split in basically north and south. And the reason for the split is there is an official community plan in the north and the development permit areas. In the south, because we don't have an official community plan, there are no development permit areas. I hope that clarifies the questions. I do realize it is confusing to our residents, but at least the directors should have an idea what HN stands for.
You don't see any other hands in the room. I do see your hand is still up, Director Davidoff. Are we good? Okay, and that is the last item on our normal business, short of, there's no environmental, there's no really in. We were then at public time at 10:06, so I see we have Valley Voice online and Public Observer. If either, there's no public in the room. If either Valley Voice or Observer have a question of this committee, please unmute now and we will try to answer it. We'll try to answer it. Just wait a minute in case somebody needs a second to unmute. And not seeing anything in chat. We are at the end of the agenda and move for a motion to adjourn at 10:06 and a half, 10:06. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, for the discussion this morning.